Welcome to ComputedField's overview of Benchling's latest feature releases. We've taken the feature releases from the last 3 or 4 months and collated them into one video. You'll see throughout this video 8 different features. On your screen now, you'll see at which point in the video we overview them, so please feel free to skip ahead to the features that interest you. Our first feature is Notebook Sections. Notebook Sections are a new feature on Benchling that allow you to create collapsible areas within your notebook entries. This is great when you have a long notebook entry that has a lot of tables in it and you want to make it a little bit less cluttered when you're working with it. So here's a section at the top and here's another section. So you can click on the little caret icon and it'll expand and close down that area. To insert one of these, you click Insert Up here, Section, you can give it a name. So let's say this is going to be Plasmid Registration. And yeah, we're not going to use a section date, for example. We're going to click Insert, and it's now inserted. We can click this little palette icon to add a color to it. Plate maps are a new feature on Benchling that are going to make your life a lot easier if you work with plates. So here I am in a notebook entry, and if I go up here and click Insert and then Plate Map, from here a modal is going to open here. If you are using an existing plate, you can click here. If you're going to create a new plate, you can fill out this menu just as you'll be familiar with throughout Benchling. I'm going to use a plate that already exists. So I'm going to use this 4x6 well plate here. I'm going to click Next, and you're going to be greeted by the plate map itself. And there's 2 key areas I'm going to point out here. One is this well roll modal, and the second is this contents modal. So if you'd like, you can start to highlight different rows and assign them with different roles. So for example, this top row I'm going to assign as a sample row, and the second row I'm going to assign as a control row. Okay, so once you've gone through your plate and assigned roles, which isn't always necessary, but for some folks it's helpful, you can click into Contents. And from here you can actually start to fill your plate with the different contents. You can look at your well roll overlay here. Otherwise you can go to this menu over here and start to add your sources. So I'm going to highlight these rows, and I'm going to start to add some plasmid lots into here. So I'm going to add source here, and then in my second row, I'm also going to add another plasmid lot here. So we've got plasmid lots, so 2 rows of plasmid lots here. Then what I can do is also highlight over them again, and in this case, I'm going to add an oligo to these wells. I'm going to add oligo 2 here, and I'll add source, and you can start to see that the overlay has slightly changed to show that there's different contents in there. So we're going to do that. Now you can click Next. From here you can start to track all of the volumes and concentrations. So you have 2 views here. I have the summary view, which is going to let you change all of the plasmid lots at once, so add all of their concentrations and units if it's the same. And the same with oligos. Otherwise, if we want to go well by well, we can fill out the table here, and it will go by each individual well and each component. There are different concentrations here. The one I'm going to fill out today is final concentration, because this is the one that's going to be tracked against your sample. So I'm going to just say 10 and 5 here. I pick my units, so it's just a micromolar. And they are all going to be, let's say, 100 microliters in volume. And now I've got my wells, which have plasmid lot in them at 10 microliters, oligo at 5, and then my well volume altogether is 100 microliters. I'm going to click Fill, and it's going to create that plate in Benchling, and you can see this interactive plate map within your notebook entry. And if I go to my actual plate here, you can see that it's got the contents that I just filled up in here, and you can see the well roll as well. The third feature on our list is unit dictionaries and unit-aware fields. Unit dictionaries are a new way that Benchling manages different units for fields such as concentration or volume, or any other fields that require units that you may have built into your data model. If you take note of my screen here and look at this result schema, I'm trying to capture concentration in this field. You can see that I have no units listed. Now previously, you'd likely add the units in parentheses in the column header, but now we can use unit dictionaries, which are a little bit smarter. So if you follow my screen and you come to the unit dictionary area in the feature settings, you'll be led to a page that looks something like this. And you can see different unit types. For example, units to do with cell count, length, mass, molar concentration, time. and you can see all these units. And for example, with molar concentration, I could add a new unit. If I want to add, let's say, an even more options of molar concentrations, you can put a name, add symbols, the conversion factor from the base unit, and then click plus. And this will now add this into your unit dictionary. If I now come over to my result schemas here, and I look for my concentration, my oligo concentration, I can find it here. And what I can do is come to this concentration field, click on this little cog icon, and you need to make sure that the field is a definition type of a decimal or an integer, and click set unit. And you'll be able to see all of those units in your unit dictionary, including the ones that you may have just configured. So in this case, I want to put, let's say, micromolar here. I'll click save. And now if I go back to my notebook entry and I reset my table, you can now see that the unit is now included here in the field. Our fourth feature is save column mapping. This is going to be a really useful feature if you find yourself importing in bulk into Benchling using spreadsheets, whether you're importing directly into a result table or a registration table using the add from spreadsheet function, whether you're importing directly into the registry using the import entities function. So what I've got here on my screen is a spreadsheet, and it's got oligos and concentrations, and it's only 7 entities, but this works for you doing 7 or 1,000 entities. What I'm going to do is add from spreadsheet, just as you normally would, and I'm going to insert the raw text here and click next. And this is my first time doing this, so I'm going to have to manually match up all the columns. So item, you see the name doesn't quite match, so I need to add it to DNA oligo. Concentration, I'm going to add concentration, and metadata I'm going to ignore. I'm going to click next. And before I click import into table, just here, I'm going to click this save column mappings for DNA oligo concentration. And I'm going to give it a name. So I'm going to give it DNA oligo concentration instrument A output. And I'm going to save that. And I'm going to click import. So now I've done that import just here. I can manipulate it how I want to in Benchling. Okay, so let's pretend it's the next day, and I'm going to import a second sheet of data. It's slightly different data, but it's in the same format, the same columns, just different data points. So I'm going to come here again, do the same, add from spreadsheet, paste in my values. And now at the top here, you'll see this option for apply a column mapping. And here you can see that save column mapping that I saved earlier. And if you notice, these ignores will suddenly be filled into how I mapped them earlier. I'm going to click next and click import. And that's going to speed up your import process and allow you really to import multiple different times over different days without having to configure your columns each time. The fifth feature on our list is embeddable canvases. So embeddable canvases are a way in Benchling that you can configure a UI within the notebook entry. So it's these insertable canvases that you can have certain inputs and it can display outputs. And the way it works is that it will hook up to an integration that you have built with Benchling. So for example, here we have a PubChem import app canvas. So what you can do is import chemical structures directly from PubChem into Benchling. And that's using an integration that connects Benchling with PubChem. And the app canvas operates as this customized UI that you can build. And now they're available directly within the notebook entry. So users don't need to leave the notebook entry to go to interact with these app canvases. They can do it directly within the notebook entry. The sixth feature on our list is related schema tabs. Now, related schema tabs are a great way in Benchling to allow you to see the different areas that a drop-down list may be used in. Previously, if you made a lot of drop-down lists and you added them to lots of schemas, it was very hard to track where these drop-downs are used. So if you made a change, it's hard to see the downstream effects. Now there's a schema and field sets tab on the right here. And you've clicked this. This will tell you all of the different places that your drop-down has been utilized. So it makes it much easier for managing your platform and for the change management impacts. Our seventh feature on the list is location history reports. Within Benchling, specifically within the inventory, it might be important for you to get an audit log or a report to see what items have been moving in or out of a certain location, whether that's a fridge, freezer, room, etc. Looking at my screen here, I'm looking at this lab room that we have. I can click on this cog icon and open location. And then from here, I can click on the export location history tab. I can set a date range, so I'm just going to look at stuff from January, and I'm going to click export. And this is going to run for a little bit and send you an email of an exported report. Here's one that I prepared earlier. So you can see you get an exported PDF report, which will provide you with all of the items that have moved in or out of this location. So you can see it's line by line, and this can be really useful if you have some sort of audit that you need to undertake. The next feature on our list is the convert column to single input functionality. So within a notebook entry, we can now start to convert fields into single input fields. So the way that looks is, in this example here, let's say I register 3 different plasmids. So I've already filled out the data, I'm going to click submit. And then within my template here, I'm now going to have one lot for each of these plasmids created. Let's say they're all from the same vendor. Previously, I would have to go here and then drag down just like this. And I'd be able to put the vendor into each of those fields, and then I click register. What we now can do is, if you right click this heading and click convert column into single input, now we can select the vendor here, vendor A, and it will apply to every single row within that table. So now we can add data that is copied across all of the different rows in one click rather than having to drag down all of the rows. If I click submit, you'll see that vendor A will now be associated with each of these different lots. So we can now see vendor A, vendor A, vendor A.